Okay, and once again, welcome to this, I would say, somewhat unusual episode of Understanding End Times. Some time ago, I wrote a book. Let me see if I can bring it up so you can see it. Um, there we go. Heaven, Hell, and the Rapture. It's a novel on the reality of all three. Now, uh, it involves real scriptural, solid scriptural references, but it also involves a story of a number of people. Now, it starts off on the heaven part of it with a young man that was born into a farming family in southern Tennessee back in the 1920s, shortly before World War II broke out. Just timing enough so that this young man could be the right age when it came around to people needing to join the army to fight for freedom and so forth. And so he joined the army, as was pretty traditional among the men in his family. Our other young man was born on the streets of Chicago. His dad was killed in a bar fight when he was fairly young. And the young man then, of course, got into crime with gangs in the city. And when the war came along, he also joined the military, but not necessarily as a product of his own idea. He was facing pretty heavy prison time for armed robbery. And so the judge said, if you will join the military, we'll put all this on hold. See how you do, and then when you're discharged, if you do come back, then we'll look at it and decide. So at any rate, so they're both in the army, and they both get shipped out to France. And cut to the chase, they both end up in a POW camp in France, and they meet there. All right, they're liberated, they come back home, they go back to their lifestyles. The one from Ed from the farming family goes back into the farming into the family farm and so forth. The other guy, Tim, ends up back on the streets of Chicago and spends much of his time in prison. Okay, fast forward, in their 80s they both die. Obviously, one goes to heaven, one goes to hell. So the storyline at that point in time, there's been a storyline all the way up to that, but the storyline at that point in time involves them being introduced to their eternal destiny by a guide. The one that went to heaven by an angel guide, the other one by the other kind of a guide. So we go into some of the details here again, based on a good number of NDEs, near-death experiences, and so forth. And so we do here, I think, what is probably has some measure of truth in it. At any rate, I'm going to do it a little bit different. We're going to cut to the chase, and the part that I'm going to present today has to do with the rapture of the church, but from looking above. It starts off with the Archangel Gabriel peering over the dimensional divide, I guess we can call it that, into the earth. And he's reminiscing a little bit about how sad it is that the earth has turned out the way it is. He doesn't really know what's about to take place. But suddenly he hears a call. And he turns around to see who is calling him. And that's where we pick it up. So I hope you will enjoy this. All right, we'll take up the second one at this point in time, and now then, I hope you enjoyed that. Gabriel has been notified that there's about to be a very unusual thing take place. Jesus, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, has sent him a message and said, get ready for the most awesome thing that has ever happened. And so in this little cut here, this little part of the story, we see what's happened. And so the shout from the voice of God and the trumpet from the archangel has sounded, and things are beginning to take place on the earth. They're not really, Gabriel is not really understanding exactly what's happening. It looks like the entire earth is beginning to vibrate. So let's join the story at this point in time. Cut from that one. All right, in this last little explanation of what's happened in the last little section, we see that the call for the church, the believers in Jesus Christ, to come up here has been issued, and now then they start to do it. And there is a large group of beings around Jesus and around the angelic host and so forth that are watching the activities, not really understanding a whole lot at this point in time what's happening, but a lot more than they would have had they not gone to heaven. They had not passed away. Their minds have been opened up quite a bit. And as they're standing there, an awesome thing happens all of a sudden to them, that because of their heightened intellect, they understand very quickly, but initially, wow, what a deal. Join us as we complete this part of the story, and then I'll have a word to say about our next episode and what we'll talk about then after this is over with. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you go out and get a copy of the book. I say go out. You have to order it from Amazon. Don't know of any bookstores that carries them, but you can order the book from Amazon either as a paperback or as a Kindle book. And also, there's another book that, let me bring it up here briefly so you can see what we're talking about. So What If I Vanish? This is very similar to the first book, Heaven, Hell, and the Rapture. But this deals primarily with the rapture, with the back part of the book. Now, what it is, it's designed to be a practical guide, as you can see the subtitle, on what to do if you miss the rapture. This would be a good book to buy several copies of it and leave it in a doctor's office or leave it in your home, leave it in your car, whatever. So just suppose the rapture takes place. You go, but a lot of your friends that you've been talking about don't. All of a sudden you have vanished. Some of their family members have vanished. And so if they could maybe be looking around trying to figure what's happened and they spot one of these books, they open it up and read it, now all of a sudden they know exactly what they need to do in order to make sure that when it's all over with, they're able to get on into heaven. All right, and that's another subject. Now next week, or I say next week, I'll probably do this tomorrow or the next day. It'll be up in a few days, posted. I invite you to look on my channel, Ralph Turner, in YouTube, or you can look on the Ralph Turner Show in Rumble if that's what you like to do, and that's a good alternative. But at any rate, you can go to YouTube and in the search block up there, write in my name, Ralph Turner. It'll pop up there and there'll be a picture. It is a picture that's got a little from some time back, but at any rate, that's neither here nor there. Click on that and all of them will come up, and these will be posted there. Now, you probably have already done that, so I'm wasting energy talking about it because you're here now. Okay. Next week, we're going to talk about the rapture from, this week we talked about it from the heavenly perspective, and we saw some that, obviously all of those that had already died that were believers, and they had gone to heaven. They had their spiritual bodies. We don't know exactly what kind they are, but they evidently have substance. And then the ones that were on the ground, we which are alive and remain until the coming, would be suddenly transformed and caught up. So we saw some of those. Now then, next week we're going to go back to the ground and look at some situations that may have developed among people, family members and so forth, who for whatever reason, well, the only reason is to reject Jesus Christ, and that's what they had done, and so they ended up being left behind. Now then, what can they expect? One thing we'll talk about is the possibility of massive, catastrophic situations taking place on the earth as a result of the rapture. We're going to look at scriptural precedent for that. And so we'll talk about that. I invite you to come back at that point in time. Until then, be blessed and get ready for the rapture because it's here. Look up. Your redemption is drawing near. God bless you.